Fly, Eagles, fly on the road to victory. Fight, Eagles, fight. Score touchdown. 1, 2, 3. Hit them low, hit them high. Watch our Eagles fly. Fly, Eagles, fly on the road to victory. E-A-G-L-E-S, Eagles!
Let's do that again.
Fly, Eagles, fly on the road to victory. Fly, Eagles, fly. Score a touchdown, 1, 2, 3. Hit 'em low, hit 'em high, and watch our Eagles fly. Fly, Eagles, fly on the road to victory. E-A-G-L-E-S, Eagles!
Hello again, everyone. If you're joining us on YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook Live, we're glad to have you for the live stream. And if you're listening to us on the regular podcast on one of your podcast providers like Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Podcaster Castro, or Spotify and Amazon Music, we're glad for you as well. We're here on a special Wednesday night. Wanted to be here sooner, right after the draft, and we'll discuss why we weren't on sooner. But we're here to discuss an amazing Eagles draft. I said that, I'll say it again. An amazing Eagles draft on the Where Eagles Dare podcast with Lee and Tubby. So let's get this party started. With me, as always, is my partner in crime, Tubby. How is it going, man?
It's going good, man. It's going good. It's going well. It's going well. Nah, man, it's good to be back, man. Like you said, man, it's a good draft. We have a lot to talk about tonight. A lot of things to cover, early in the season, but I think it jump started things we did in this draft. Jump started a lot of Eagles fans, man. I'm doing well, ready to get this show on the road, man. What's up?
I second that sentiment. I tell you what, we did our preview last week, and we looked at quite a few of the potential picks that could happen, but we had no idea going into Thursday night what we were in for. And I tell you what, we came away Thursday night I went to bed smiling, and we'll talk about it here in a minute. But one of the reasons we wanted to be on Sunday, we wanted to capture everything right the day after the draft. And then I had an incident in my home where my wife changed the water filter on our refrigerator. So it's a thing where you go underneath it and you dislodge the regular one and then insert the new one. She twisted it in. She couldn't see any water running, but there's a little reservoir that catches it initially. And so she went to bed, and water ran all night and just came out of the reservoir. And we got up Sunday morning, and the entire kitchen and it went down through the floor. And we have a drop ceiling in our basement. If we have a finished basement, it's not finished anymore. It needs to be refinished. So the water went through and you should have seen it. It was insane. The tiles, they collected water as it came from the upstairs, and they started to bow, and several of them just exploded. And then the water, so it's like I had all these 100 water balloons above my stuff.
Yeah.
It was insane. So we went down there and had a mess to clean up. Fortunately, which I don't know how it happened, was I didn't have any water damage on my studio. My mixing board was fine. My computer was fine. Everything. My hard drive's fine. I couldn't believe it. And my memorabilia, I have a ton of sports memorabilia, as you know. You've seen my basement. You know what it looks like. And that all was fine. I lost some posters. I lost my two recliners, my two Eagles green recliners that I watched the games in. Done. They're gone. They were soaked completely. And my couch soaked. So those are all going in the trash. But that's a small price to pay for keeping everything else safe. So I had to move my whole setup into my kitchen. So I've taken over my wife's, or actually my dining room. taking over my wife's dining room now. So she until we get it, they have to rip out the carpet. They got to put new carpet down. The guys we had to come in, and they came. I got to give them credit. We had a water mitigation team come in, sent by the insurance company. They were here within an hour of us discovering everything and started helping us clean everything up and got us situated. So that's why we're delayed until Wednesday. And but I'm glad that we're here tonight to discuss this draft. We're probably the last of all the Eagles podcast people out there, but we're saving the best for last, right, so we can discuss this. So I'm going to lead off with just a real quick look at the results of the draft, and then we're going to break it down one by one. So we talked about it during the draft preview. The Eagles had 10 picks, and I said the night they're not making all 10 of those picks. They're going to trade some. They may make more or less, probably less. And it turned out that out of the 10, they actually drafted 5 players that you see before you. Jordan Davis, a defensive tackle, Cam Jurgens, the center, Nakobe Dean at linebacker, another linebacker, Kyron Johnson, and then the tight end, Grant Calcaterra. So, but then there was another move that happened during the draft, and it kind of set everything on its head, because after the Eagles traded up to get Jordan Davis, who we'll discuss here in a little bit, they pulled off the move of the night. And I got to point out, we discussed this on the draft preview as a possibility to happen and something that I definitely wanted to see. And the Eagles went out and traded for A.J. Brown, which was just it was unexpected, because Howie usually doesn't do these sorts of things, but it happened, and we ended up getting A.J. Brown and then signed him immediately to a contract. So we only gave up our 18th pick in the draft and the 3rd round pick to get him, which to me is a steal. And we talked about this. So what was your take on the move when it happened?
When it happened, I mean, I was surprised. I mean, if you knew that the Eagles were getting A.J. Brown, good for you. But I had some Titan friends. I got 2 Titan buddies out here. Neither one of them was okay with what happened and what just went down. You know, I was high on Traylon Burks.
Right.
So I'm sitting there, you know, just give you my mood at the time. I'm sitting there waiting for the Eagles to call Traylon Burks. I'm like, okay, cool. This is a no-brainer. You know, not saying he's the best in the draft, but he's the best left, in my opinion. So I'm sitting there waiting, and all of a sudden, boom. And it took me a while to really understand what was going on. Like, yeah, AJ, the Eagles have AJ Brown from the Titans. I don't understand. We're supposed to be picking Traylon Burks here. So, nah, man, it just all hit me like. And then I saw, you know, what we paid them, or what we're going to pay them, or no, or what we paid them, what you just showed. Obviously the next day, but then in that time, man, I was really surprised, man. You know, first I was like, wow. But then I got really excited, man, because I wanted Traylon Burks, I wanted that other player, but I'm like, nah, this makes sense. This makes sense here because Howie hasn't had success drafting wide receivers, so this makes sense. You know, he actually did something that made sense for once. So
right.
You know, I really appreciated that. It was definitely worth it. Even, you know, I think it was definitely worth it, man. AJ Brown, any team would love to have AJ Brown. You get me?
Yeah, and you know, we talked about this during the pre-draft show. Is like, who wouldn't want to have this guy? Now we talked about there was a choice between Brown or Samuel, but from what I heard about the Deebo Samuel thing is that a lot of people came at the 49ers trying to get a hold of Deebo, and they just weren't biting. I don't think he was available at any price. But the Titans kind of felt, okay, AJ's unhappy here. We can do this deal, get the 18th pick, and then draft Traylon Burks, which we easily could have had. And it's a good pick. But the difference, and we talked about it, the difference is having a football-ready guy that we know is a proven commodity. Traylon Burks, we think, is going to be great in the NFL. But I also thought J.J. Arcega-Whiteside was going to be pretty decent, and I thought Jalen Reagor was going to be good. And it didn't work out that way. So we don't know. That's the unknown factor. And you got a guy that's only been playing for 3 years, and we're getting him now, and then they lock him down to a 4. Now, that was the big part of the deal, was getting him in that contract and locking him down for a 4-year deal, which is huge. So yeah, I mean, it really solved a lot of problems at the wide receiver, and it does make up for us missing out. I won't say on Jordan Jefferson. That's still a big miss. But maybe on the DK Metcalf side of things, I'm missing out on DK Metcalf. We've kind of replaced that pick, and now we've got two proven commodities in Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown going to be lined up side by side, throwing Zach Pascal in the slot most definitely, and then Goddard on the end. You've got four good options right now, great options for Hurts to throw to. So I don't think there's going to be many excuses. It does create a kind of a prove it thing on Jalen. He's gonna have to excel this year. He's really gonna have to show what he can do with these weapons. I will say this, and I want to hear your take on it. I love the Philly fans. I am very passionate about the Eagles, have been since I was a kid. But man, we do have a toxic fan base at times. And one of the things that killed me was going on the message boards after this pick and just seeing the venom coming out against Jalen Hurts, saying, I don't know why we're going out and trading for A.J. Brown. They got nobody can throw to him anyway. And I'm like, dudes, seriously, we just got one of the best receivers in the league, and this is your reaction. So at the very least, if Jalen does not succeed next year, we know they're going to look at the quarterback position. But man, have some hope. Have some hope that we're going to have a good season and that Jalen might be the guy. We're going to find out. So chill with that. It's just like we do have those guys out there that are in that you'll find on every Eagles message board. You cannot please them no matter what the pick is.
Right.
They could have went out and traded for Aaron Rodgers and A.J. Brown, and these people will find some way to complain about it. So it's crazy. So how do you feel about how A.J. Brown fits in the offense, and how do you feel about that kind of reaction to him?
You know, excuses is the thing that I heard the most. Some of my friends that are Eagles fans, my brother, homeboy, a couple folks, when they text me, they said, now Hurts doesn't have any excuses. And I kept hearing that word, and I was like, man, I don't recall where Hurts was ever making excuses. Jalen Hurts just is the quarterback that he is. He's never made any excuses. If anything, he's always taken the responsibility of being the leader and being the quarterback for the Eagles. And, I just come to the realization it's always going to happen. It doesn't really matter why. I do just find it fascinating. This is kind of what I, spoke about a lot last season, was the infatuation with the slander against Jalen Hurts. Like, it's one thing for everybody to know, okay, 16 touchdown passes, 9 interceptions. You need to improve on that. No shit. Like, everybody knows that, yeah, you need to improve on that. But it's the rush to slander Hurts, like it makes people feel better. It's like if you don't go a day without talking about Jalen Hurts, it's almost like, you haven't fulfilled your day. Any broadcast you watch, you'll watch that energy go back to Hurts. And I seen Hurts talk about it today. Was it yesterday? Like, hey, you have all these receivers now. A lot of the pressure is on you. And he was like, look, this is my team. He was like, I get it. I understand, that I understand the situation. But when it comes to Jalen Hurts, I always think like, man, what other quarterbacks are going through this? Most teams just, hey, you have a young quarterback, how it's always been in the NFL, you wait and see. But I feel like people are ready to down Hurts before they wait and see. And at the end of the day, I just want to make these points when it just comes to Hurts. Hurts, when he was a Heisman finalist, right, his senior year, when he was a Heisman finalist his senior year in Oklahoma, what he did was he had 32 touchdowns, 31 touchdowns, and about 20 rushing touchdowns. So no matter what happens, he still is going to have that breakdown where he has a few touchdown passes when he also runs, because a lot of his running is his strong suit. But the main point I'm making here is that while he had 31 touchdowns and 20 rushing touchdowns his senior year at Oklahoma, you see the ratio in that. He's still going to be that type of quarterback. In that same year, he outpassed Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence. He had more passing yards while rushing for 20 touchdowns. I mean, this is just the quarterback that he is. I say all that to say this: if the Eagles want a quarterback that's just going to stand there and throw and can occasionally run, Jalen Hurts is never going to be that quarterback. He's always going to run the football. Do we need him to get better in passing? Of course, 16-9, that's elementary. You got it on paper. You always want to improve from that. I think Jalen Hurts understands that. I just would, like you said, I'd rather the Eagles fans just support him. And if it doesn't work out, of course we'll move on from him. That was part of a lot of the trades and a lot of the situations that we've put ourselves in. Some of those trades got us first-round picks for next year for insurance in case we need to move on from a quarterback. But then it goes, do we move on to another rookie? Maybe
Right.
Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown wants a veteran quarterback. It's not always in the draft, is my point, man. You know, you may not always get it from the draft. Maybe it's another quarterback out there that the Eagles can bring in because A.J. Brown is, you know, he's in for 3 years. Devontae second year. These guys are going to start getting older. They're going to want that veteran quarterback, man. So I feel you on that, man. I just think we need to support Jalen Hurts, support anybody wearing an Eagles helmet. And if it doesn't work out, we move on. But there's no need to down them before they even take a snap. Because just like Brandon Graham said, I think the noise kind of gets to him. And why would you want to get to your own quarterback? That's just my point. Why do you want to get to your own? You're playing defense against your own quarterback. You're playing mental warfare with your own quarterback. Let him play. Let it play out. Criticize him, of course. That's what fans are always going to do. Every professional athlete understands that. But I think we should just wait and see. And just see what happens, man. But there's no rush to slander on Jalen Hurts, man.
We've disagreed on things on this podcast before, but this is one thing I think we've always agreed on is that we're not giving Hurts near enough slack and not recognizing where he is at in his progression as far as his career stats. Last year was really his first full year as a starter, and he excelled. He got, and granted, it's a team sport, but he got his team to the playoffs. Other people did well. We had the number one rushing offense in the second half of the season for sure. Defense played really good at times. But it can't be understated that this guy did this. And as the quarterback, you got to have a quarterback to get you to the playoffs. You just can't trot anybody out there and expect to get to the playoffs. And I know that the schedule was week 2. There's all these excuses that get made. But he did that with Devontae Smith and Goddard basically being his only receiving weapons. Quez, not bad. Ward, not bad. But come on. Any other team with Quez and Ward, they're not going to excel either. I mean, they do their thing. But he had Jalen Reagor, who did absolutely nothing for him. And then, you had, a couple, Miles Sanders is a great back. But that says a lot when, that he did this with those kind of weapons. And now you've given him what he needs to excel. And so let's see how things go. And I'm not saying let's see how things go in a doubting way. And that's the problem I think a lot of people are doing. They're doing this whole, well, we'll see. No, I'm saying, well, let's see now. Right. Now that you've complained about this guy, let's see what happens. So there's people that are rooting for him that are saying, let's see. And there's people that are against him and are going to say, let's see. And that's the truth. We're going to see now on both sides of the ball where this goes. Because I think that it cannot be denied 100% equivocally. No matter how negative they were on the message boards, it can't be denied that the Eagles got better after this draft. It can't be. I mean, you have to be the most negative person in the world to think that they're worse off than they were going in. So let's talk about that draft, because the very first pick in the draft, the Eagles actually traded up. Now, I didn't see that coming. I saw them sitting there at the 15th pick, standing pat, but they jumped up 2 spots. And what they did was they ended up trading the 15th pick, which is what they had. And then they traded a 4th round pick, which is not the number 124 overall, the 5th round pick, which was the number 162nd overall, and another 5th round pick, the 166. So a 4th and 2 5ths along with our own existing 1st. Some might say that's a hefty price, but if you're going to move up 2 spots and you're going to jump some teams, and they knew that Baltimore really wanted Jordan Davis, then that's what you got to do. It was kind of a surprise because I think both of us, when we were texting each other, we said Kyle Hamilton's on the board. We need safety help. This is a need that the Eagles had. We lost Rodney McLeod. Let's bring Kyle Hamilton, the best safety on the board from Notre Dame. And so when this was the pick, I was kind of surprised, but then I had to let this one sink in. I think the appeal to this guy, to Jordan Davis coming out of Georgia, is that size. The guy is massive. We got Fletcher Cox coming back on a 1-year deal and will probably be retiring if he doesn't. He's more than likely this is his last season as an Eagle, even if he doesn't retire. So it's about bringing in that future heir apparent to Fletcher Cox, pairing him with somebody like Hargrave on the line, and really solidifying that defensive line for years to come. So after I let it sink in, I'm going to miss not having Kyle Hamilton, but man, this guy could be one of the best Eagle players of all time. We just don't know yet. What's your take on Jordan Davis coming to the Eagles at 13?
You know, he has that Jerome Brown kind of feel to him. Really big dude that can play really, really nimble on his feet. Now, I must be honest here. When I saw the pick, I didn't like it. I didn't like it for a few reasons. You know, we gave up 4 picks, and mind you, this is a ground level view at the time, not the 30,000-foot view that we have now that the entire draft is all done. This is just initial reaction. We have all these picks going into the draft. We have a lot of holes to fill, and then all of a sudden, 4 picks come off the board at once. So I'm like, whoa, is this guy worth 4 NFL players? And here's the reason why I questioned that so much, because at Georgia, he only played 38% of his snaps. You know, which he wasn't an air down guy versus Kyle Hamilton, who was going to play 100% of the snaps. So to me, it was about the ratio. You know, when you're picking somebody that high, you know, if he fell to 15, I say cool. I would have been cool with them grabbing him. To move up and get rid of another 3 picks, you know, I had some concern because I would rather have a guy that's going to be on the field every single down, like Kyle Hamilton. And it was a big hole that we needed. By re-signing Fletcher Cox, we could have picked up a defensive tackle next year if it was just about a defensive tackle. They saw this guy. I seen a interview with Howie when he talked about like how he got another player. We'll talk about that down the line. But he went down there to look at Jordan Davis throughout the season. Went down to Athens, so he's been on the top of Howie's board for quite a while. But that was all it was for me, man. Giving up 4 guys in total, obviously with the same pick, but 4 guys plus he only played 38% of the snaps at Georgia. So this is not even an every down guy, which the Eagles rotate their line anyway. Makes sense. Big guys, to me, man, when they get those injuries, sometimes they linger. They linger for a long time. Trent Williams was one of them. I know he's an offensive lineman. We just talked about another like huge dude. Trent Williams' whole time in Washington seemed like it was just full of injuries. Then he gets to San Francisco last year and he's perfectly healthy. Maybe it was that Pacific Ocean healing. Yeah, man, that was how I felt in that pick. Obviously, you know, I agree with you. This could be one of the best players to ever put on the Eagles jersey. Yeah, but my initial reaction was like, but as it grew on me, and now I have the 30,000-foot view of what we did in this draft, I love the pick.
I agree. You know, and the thing is that the upside is way up there. But you make an excellent point, is that this could also be one of the biggest busts in Eagles history. This could beat Danny Watkins out from drafting the firefighter, you know, that we talked about last week. It could be really that bad because of the fact that let's be honest, Kyle Hamilton going to Baltimore, who picked him up after we picked up Davis, is that he's probably going to play a long time. He's probably going to replace Ed Reed, you know, who retired a few years ago, and he's going to come in as that hard-hitting safety that could put Baltimore back on the map defensively. We could have had that guy. But if Jordan Davis does work out and he does shut down the run game, which he's known to do, he doesn't get a lot of sacks. We talked about during the pre-draft, but he dominates that line and you cannot go his way. And here's one of the things that I thought about over the weekend was that the thing that Davis brings is those goal line situations. Those everybody in this league right now goes for it on 4th and short. everybody now. It's an epidemic. And it's because it's just the new wave coaches. They go for it on fourth all the time. And you're lining Jordan Davis up there. Let's see you run it up the middle against Jordan Davis. Let's see you. It's gonna take that away. Even quarterback sneaks against that guy. If you got Davis and Hargrave and Fletcher Cox, or take your pick, and the whole front seven, it is now going to be one of the hardest ones to run against. So one of the other things about Davis that I found is just this meme here, this tweet from Blake Wexler that has a picture of Jordan Davis and Jordan Mailata side by side, and points out that with Mailata and Davis, the Eagles now have 686 pounds of Jordan on their team. That's a lot of Jordan, man. Good stuff.
Incredible, man. That was dope, man.
So, like I said, then after that, we still had the 18th pick. I actually thought we were going to trade down with that. We ended up doing much more than trading down. We traded that in the 3rd round pick to get AJ Brown. So after the 1st round, we're sitting there. We were already 5 picks less than what we had going in. But if you went to bed that night, you had Jordan Davis and AJ Brown in your pocket. So you were kind of like, you know what? It's like when you go to a jewelry store or somewhere, fancy, where you're buying like something that's really expensive, and you could buy a lot of nice items. You could get yourself a little bracelet. You could get yourself maybe a ring, or you could get that nice Tag Heuer watch, that's just, so forget all that other stuff. We're going to put all that little stuff aside. We're going to buy the one big thing or the 2 really nice things with our money. And you got to be happy with that. So we went into day 2 wondering what the Eagles were going to do. Would they stand pat with their 51st pick in the 2nd round? And they did, and surprised me. They ended up picking out of Nebraska center Cam Jurgens with their 51st pick. The initial thought of this for a lot of people was, well, number one, we got a center, and we also had drafted Landon Dickerson last year to be the heir apparent for Jason Kelce, and we have Nate Herbig at center. What the hell are they doing in the 2nd round drafting a center, especially when a guy like Nakobe Dean was on the board? That's why I saw everywhere after this pick was, why did we pick Nakobe Dean? And just slamming it left and right. But then again, like you said, the 30,000 foot view, you start to realize that the Eagles did their due diligence on this guy. They also consulted, as you see on this slide, Jason Kelce on Cam, and I love his nickname, Beef Jerky Jurgens. And Kelce said the Eagles were using me to evaluate centers. Out of all the guys that compared the most to myself, this guy is him. We know, again, just like with Fletcher Cox, we know that Kelce is probably gone after this year, and we're lucky to have him back for one more year. So what's better than taking probably the best center in the draft? Probably. Not say unequivocally. I think on some of the boards he was the 3rd, so I'll give him that. But mobile center, a pulling center like Kelce is. We know what Kelce does in the run game. The guy's so mobile, and he sets up so many blocks for a run game, pulling left and pulling right. And you're bringing this guy in to learn under the master of Jason Kelce. You can't ask for a better situation. So I really was not disappointed with this pick at all. What did you think about Cam Beef Jurgens?
No, I was with the rest of the Eagles fans at first. I was like, linebacker. But then it dawned on me like, yeah, man, we do need a future center. The reason why a lot of people are high on this guy, he has the highest potential. He may not have been the best center in the draft, but potential-wise, he came to Nebraska as a tight end. He was recruited as a tight end. It's a 6'3" tight end. So he's nimble. You know what I'm saying? So I think he has so much upside. You know how what we call Kelce, we call him nimble. He can get out, he can pull, he can get down. He's very durable. So I don't expect him to do a lot this year. And he's played, make this point too, he's played behind a lot of like running quarterbacks and Taylor Martinez that was at Nebraska. Nebraska they haven't really thrown the ball well in like 4 or 5 years, based off the talent that we've had. So they run a lot. So this guy is used to pulling. He's definitely used to run blocking a lot. yeah, man, we'll see what happens here, man. But if Kelsey likes him, I like him. I'm not going to act like I have the best scouting report on the center because I don't. So we'll see how he does, man, and how he makes it through, man. How he makes it through. So we have he's going into a great locker room as far as linemen go. I mean,
I tell
he's
you,
going into a great locker room. A lot of guys he can learn from. So welcome to Philly. Welcome to Philly, Cam Jurgens.
Exactly. Now, yeah, my initial reaction, I wasn't like really upset. I was just kind of, I think I texted you at center. It just was a head scratcher knowing we needed defensive back help. We needed corner. And I think I said that like every time we made a pick, where's the corners? Where's the safeties? And especially early on in the draft, when you've traded, so many picks, where are those corners and safeties that we need? But then you look at how he was doing. And normally, like I said, I have a problem with a lot of how he does in the draft, but he was looking at BPA. He was looking at best player available, and he was looking at where he was on the board and what we were looking at toward the future, not really looking at immediate needs, but at that kind of rebuild thing. And he the thing that was, a lot of people said about Landon Dickerson was that we've got Landon Dickerson and Herbig that can play, but Dickerson played so good at guard. They were like, we got to keep him in that left guard spot. He played outstanding in that position. So I think he's no longer anything other than backup center. So now that they've got Jurgens, we know that this is what it's going to be. So yeah, good luck. I mean, I think it's a tall order for a second round pick to come in as a center, and we'll see how he does this year. I don't know if he'll get any playing time, probably not much. We'll see, maybe some cleanup time stuff, but he is going to learn. Under Kelsey, he's going to be able to watch and observe for a whole year, and I can't wait to see what he does do down the road. So let's move on to the third round pick. Like I said, a lot of people were crying that we didn't get Nakobe Dean with the 51st pick, but guess what? With our second pick in the third round, the 83rd pick overall, this guy was still on the board, and the Eagles, no brainer here, had to pick him up. I texted you. I said, I'm not saying I don't love the pick, but I definitely still wanted a cornerback or a safety. Then when you start thinking about it, the big concern with this guy, and I know we'll talk here, I'll let you talk about it, is the pec injury. Is it a tear? The doctors say it's a strain, but it's caused him to fall dramatically down the boards. But this is a first-round talent at linebacker. For me, it was kind of confusing because we got Hassan Reddick, we got Kazir White, we have Edwards, we have Bradley, and we're bringing this guy into the fold. But BPA, best player on the board. And the Eagles actually traded up to get him with the third pick and traded some of their later round picks just to get up and get this guy because he's still sitting around. So Nakobe Dean from the University of Georgia, linebacker, comes to us in our second pick in the third round in the 83rd. Actually, I'm sorry. I said second pick of the third round. We only had one pick in the third round because Jurgens was the second round pick. I correct myself.
Yeah, man. Man, I got you, man. I like this pick. And a little funny story. I watched the interview I listened to when Howie was talking about how he went down to go scout Jordan Davis. He's down in Athens, Georgia. He's on campus. And he said, okay, I know Jordan Davis. It's a good player. Who else do you guys have? And he said, one of the guys said, man, Nakobe Dean is the best player on our team if you haven't even asked about him yet. And he was like, oh, I'll get to him. And then Howie said he's been on my mind the whole time. He said when the second round came around, they were thinking, okay, let's go ahead and take Dean. And then he said, let's just go with the line, more of that building around Hurts thing. These are more of my words, the building around Hurts, but that's just what I take from it. He's like, let's go with the line. Let's get that replacement for Kelsey. So he said, so we pick up Cam Jurgens. He said, third round comes around. So I could not believe that he was still on the board. He said, I wrote down a piece of paper twice, Nakobe Dean. We had 15 picks left. And he said, I wasn't going to say his name until we got close. And when he came to us, he said it was a no-brainer. So the Eagles, it just shows you the mindset that Howie was thinking a little bit better this draft in general. He had to make some tough decisions. He had said he had already considered Nakobe Dean a loss. He was like, you're not going to win them all. You're not going to get every player in a draft. So he had already considered Nakobe Dean a loss. But so We're getting another leader, man. We're getting another. Also, he said he left the draft room, goes to the team doc and asks him, hey, what's up with Dean? What's up with this pectoral issue? He said that the Eagles team doc gave him the green light, walked back in, selected the pick. So I thought that was a little dope, a little good insight, because everybody was like, wow, how did we get Dean? He was like, I was thinking like most other GMs, like if this guy is sliding, something must be wrong. He's like, and I fell into that trap as well too. Which also good to see that these guys are human too. They're looking just like us. Like, why is he sliding? Nobody wants to be wrong. So I thought that was a good interview, good insight from Howie, man. It shows his growth as well too as a draft selector. So yeah, man, I like the pick. Man, I can't believe we got him in the third round. I still can't believe that we got him in the third round. Man, I think this is going to be. See, Hassan Reddick, to me, I think he's more of a DN. So I think this is going to fill in very well with Dean. So I know we picked up Reddick, but I think he's going to be that other piece. Right. The linebackers is going to allow us to play Hassan Reddick in just more spots, more positions. We got some talented guys back there now, man. Really excited about it.
I think this takes us back to the days of when we had Jordan Hicks and Michael Kendricks, where Kendricks would line up on the line at linebacker. And he was mostly played as a defensive end, but you had Jordan Hicks who wandered the middle and could play on the end, could cover passes, but also was a high volume tackler. You couldn't run the ball on him. He is so, and that's why I think the same thing about Dean. When I started watching all the tape and all the highlights and looking at his stats, yeah, he had a series of injuries. We know that, but when he was on the field, he was considered one of the most valuable players on the Georgia defense, heart and soul of the defense. And that's the kind of linebacker that you want. So you pair him with Reddick, and then you throw in Kazir White, Edwards, Bradley. That you just made with what we did, what we picked up with Jordan Davis and the existing linemen we've got. You've made our front seven, front eight, probably the most powerful in the NFC right now, at least, if not the entire league. I challenge you to give me another front seven that has that many studs on it that are just gonna pound you. So. Love the pick. Saw the couple of tweets. I love these that came out. Was Jordan Davis was really excited that Nakobe Dean was picked. So he's got my boy at Nakobe Dean with me. Delayed, not denied, bro. Let's show Philly how we do it. That was one of the things that really touched me was if you listen to the call when Howie called him and told him that the Eagles were selecting him, you could hear the emotion in Dean's voice. He was upset. He was embarrassed that he had fallen that far and didn't know. When you're a kid that's a projected first rounder and a bad medical report comes out on you and you start to free fall down the draft, that has to be one of the worst, absolutely gut-wrenching feelings in the world. And to hear how we talked to him, and you could hear the tears, man. It was tears of joy that somebody believed in him. And there was another player that this happened to by the name of DK Metcalf that actually has been trying to prove everybody wrong ever since. He has a hit list of teams that passed on him, and he's made the Eagles pay for not passing on him. And I think Nakobe Dean has a lot of people to prove that they were wrong in passing him up. And then this other picture I have here, I just love this one. I just like the picture. You got Eagle legends Bobby Taylor and Troy Vincent, two of my favorite corners we ever had, with Nakobe Dean, just mentioning that he was a steal of the entire draft. So congratulations. Yeah, I can't wait to see this kid play. They're saying that he's just got a strain, and so they may take it easy on him in training camp, but they're talking about him being ready for the season. So we'll just have to see how that goes.
Nah, man, I'm excited about that pick, man. I'm excited about a lot of Eagles picks, man. I just like the draft in general. Yeah, man. We'll see how he progresses. Right. We do have a good linebacking core. He may not feel pressured to start immediately, even if we have to, rest that injury a little longer. You see him playing with a brace on, like in that picture, in his draft picture. You can kind of see him playing with that. I don't know if that's a shoulder or pec or what that's for, but you can kind of see him, laboring some type of injury. And he didn't want to get the surgery for it, so maybe it's not that bad. But yeah, as you can see that brace,
right? Yeah, I see it.
On the left side of his right arm. So we'll see what happens, man. This is a no doubt good pickup, undeniable pickup. really excited, man.
I agree. Well,
Really excited.
for where we got him, you can't complain. Even if it turns out that he gets injured and he doesn't play much. For where we got him, you got to take a chance in this situation. So I got to give Howie credit.
Right.
So that was it for our day 2. It was a kind of a boring day 2, other than we got Juergens and Dean. So it makes you smile, and we went into day 3, but we didn't have any 4th round or 5th round picks now because we traded them all away to get Brown and Davis. And what I said earlier, I said that the Eagles traded up to get Dean. They didn't. I made a mistake there. I have to correct myself. What they did do was they made a deal with Jacksonville to drop down out of the 5th round to get 2 6th round picks, which was big. And then they packaged a 6th rounder and their 7th rounder, because they had, at that point, I think they had 3 6 round picks, package a 6th and a 7th to move up and get this guy in the 6th round. And it was, is it Kieran or Kyron?
It looks like it's Kyron. That's how
I would say Kyron. Yeah, Kyron.
Kyron with a K, if you will.
I never paid attention to them talking about his first name. By the 3rd day of the draft, I'm going to admit I wasn't really watching it with the sound on too much. I was just letting the ticker go because they don't even care at that point. They're just like showing a million other things. They're recapping the first 3 rounds. So this guy comes up, and my first instinct again was, okay, another linebacker. First off, like, after we got Dean and we've got all these other guys, why did we need a linebacker? And it just didn't make a lot of sense to me when I still felt we needed that corner help and that safety help. Now, granted, you're probably not going to get a great corner or safety in the 6th round. You may get an adequate one. You never know. But it still didn't make a ton of sense to me. I felt a little bit different when I looked into him a little bit, but I feel that way about a lot of guys. I still just don't know about this pick. What did you make about this pick in the 6th round?
I didn't really know who he was, honestly. I didn't watch a lot of Kansas games this year, but I mean, it's just another guy you can bring in. They've obviously seen something on him on the tape. He was at Kansas for 5 years or something like that. Like, used the COVID exemption to come back for another year. He's 6'2", 235, so it looked like he's more of a run stopper. He's smaller than Reddick, but he's about the same size, as far as weight wise. So maybe we can drop him down in a little bit of pass rush as well too, in that Brandon Graham type role.
Right.
If you're going to draft a player, to me, any player that is drafted, any player, I mean, we're talking about still being one of the top. Well, how many picks? 262,
something like that. Yeah.
Like, you're still in the top 270, if you will, bear with top 270 in the country. All those schools, all those college players, for you to still stand out amongst those 32 teams, 7 rounds, for you to still, if your name's still to come up, you're still the cream. Like, you're still the cream. Like, how you pan out, depending on what team you go to, that determines a lot. But like I said, I watched his highlight tapes. Didn't watch a lot of Kansas games, but hey man, welcome to Philly, Kyron, and hope you can get in with where you fit in, man. This is just a need that we needed. We needed linebackers, and we picked up linebackers.
Well, that was the thing. I think I texted you about this pick was like, after saying last week that Howie doesn't draft linebackers, especially doesn't draft them in the 1st round, but usually doesn't draft them until really late. I'm just shocked that he took 2 in this draft.
Yeah.
The thing about Johnson is that they talk about him as like playing that Sam role. He might spell Reddick, but the one big thing that I saw in his scouting report that he had forced in his career at Kansas, he forced 8 fumbles and 4 last season alone. So he is kind of one of those ball hawking, slender linebackers, if you will. I kind of like him in coverage, like you said, a little bit too, but playing that maybe the little bit of the edge roll, but stopping the run. We'll see if he gets on the field. It does give depth because what they did mention, a lot of people mentioned that we got Kazir White, but he is on a 1-year deal. We have, I think Bradley is his last year on contract. So it's again another looking for the future if this guy makes it or not. Again, in the 6th round, I can't complain. I would like to have seen need, but in the 6th round, you can't really complain what you get. They're going again with BPA, and they did jump over the Giants, who I think were high on this guy. One of the things that I'll give Howie credit is that they were looking at who other teams were interested in, and he usually doesn't do that. Usually Howie just picks whoever he wants. But a smart GM knows who the hot guys are and knows what his opponents are looking for, and he likes to steal them. Why wouldn't you want to do that? So, yeah, congrats. So then we move on to our final pick of the draft. Again, it was another for me. It was a big head scratcher, and that was Grant Calcaterra out of SMU and Oklahoma. He played some Oklahoma time, and he's a tight end. So pick 198 in the 6th round. We didn't have a 7th rounder, so this was our last pick of the draft. And you see his career. It's 79 career receptions, 1,100 yards, and then 13 touchdowns. So this I found out after the fact that this is somebody that a lot of teams were really high on as a kind of pass catching tight end. I don't know if he's going to be much of a blocker. I know the Eagles didn't have, we traded Zach Ertz to Arizona. We don't really have too much in tight end. They're trying to move Arcega-Whiteside over there at tight end. This will definitely make J-Jaw's transition a little bit more difficult if this guy outshines him. And so back up to Goddard. I know the Eagles do like to run a lot of 2 tight end sets, but we already have a tight end. I didn't see this in the 6th round being a big need. I did get that he played with Hurts at Oklahoma for a little bit, so there's a familiarity factor there. But what did you make of this as the final pick for the Eagles in the draft?
Well, your best ability is your availability, right?
Yep.
So we got a guy that retired from football 2 years ago. This guy retired from football. I saw a few highlights when he was at OU. Kyler Murray was throwing him a couple dimes. He can definitely high point. This is a stud. Don't get me wrong. Hold on. This is a stud. This is probably the best tight end in the draft. This guy is really, really, really good. But he retired from football because of too many head injuries. Man, that's things that can keep guys out for a long time and make them second guess a lot. I know you played down at SMU. You didn't play back up there in that Big 12, back at Oklahoma. So we just have to wait and see. I will say it wasn't a need, but I also can't name a backup tight end for the Eagles. So, once again, man, if this guy is if he can stay on the field, this is a really good tight end. He was high on everybody's board, but nobody wanted to take a chance on a guy that made the cognitive decision, no pun intended, about his concussions. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
To retire from football for 2 years and you come back, you're at SMU, so you're going to look good on tape. But this dude high points the ball. He's a good receiver, man. He's actually even a good receiver. He runs really good routes. I watched him. First, I was like, why would we pick up a guy that retired from football? When I watched the tape, I was like, man, I guess if you were kind of done with the draft and you had already probably made some deals that we seen come out after, then I understand why Howard was like, let's just take a flyer on a guy who was the best tight end in the draft, but he's going to fall because of his medical issues, just like Dean did. So I think, man, if some of these picks hit, like Dean, or especially this one right here, Calcaterra.
Right, Calcaterra.
Calcaterra. I think this could really hit, man. I think this could really hit for us, man. And all of a sudden, man, we have a good backup to Goddard now, who was one of the highest rated tight ends last year in Pro Football Focus. So I'm not going to say I like the pick, but this is a wait and see pick. Like, okay, if you were done with the draft and you just took a flyer just to go home, this could really hit. Like we could really, because a guy could come in for multiple reasons. He can come in and play so well that he can trade and get another pick for him. So it's just no telling. There's no telling.
That's an excellent point. Like I said, I saw the reaction from the family when he got picked in the 6th round. And again, this is somebody, like I said, quit on football. And there was passion there. He was very relieved. I mean, he, put his head down. He was very blessed that he was able to come back. But he did get that pick because of how he did perform on the field. the other Eagles tight ends right now, if we're talking outside of J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, is Jack Stoll, and we still have Richard Rodgers on the roster, who's been around for a long time. So we don't really have a good tight end number 2. So when you look at that, it was a need. It was a need because what happens if Goddard goes down? Are we going to give it over to Jack Stoll and Richard Rodgers? I mean, I wouldn't feel too comfortable with that. Rodgers okay, but he's definitely in the waning part of his career. So this makes sense from the 6th round. Again, it just, my only issue was we had needs that we didn't meet, and we had 10 picks going in, ended up, using only 5. And, so we used half of what we got, but we got value, and we got AJ Brown. So technically we got 6 players out of this draft. So I wasn't going to really rough the last day of the draft when I looked at the 2 picks. Whatever. It's 6th round. I mean, exactly. We didn't have any 7th. We didn't have any compensatory picks. So whatever. So that left it up to what we had, the undrafted free agents. It was always a lot of fun after the pick because we've seen the NFL Network special undrafted. We know that there are gems to be had. We had our own history of undrafted free agent successes. So we got to look at the list of who they signed right after the draft was over, and they came fast and furious. Now I have on here the Brown quarterback EJ Perry, who was really probably one of the most sought after quarterbacks out there. There's a funny story behind this because the Eagles also signed the Nevada quarterback Carson Strong, and the way the story goes is they signed EJ Perry because they didn't think they were going to get Strong. So once they got Strong down, Perry looked at his options and went, I got Jalen Hurts, Gardner Minshew, and now the most sought after quarterback of the undrafted free agents, Nevada quarterback Carson Strong, in front of me. This is not a good opportunity for EJ Perry. So he went and signed with Jacksonville, where he has a chance to maybe be a backup there behind Trevor Lawrence instead of being further down the depth chart. So he's on this list here, but that just recently happened. So he's gone. But we did get a center Reed Blankenship. We got the Utah wide receiver Britton Covey. We got the Oklahoma running back Kennedy Brooks, which is pretty decent as far as depth. We'll see if he can make the team. One of my favorite undrafted picks, and I got a picture of him right here, Josh Joby, the Alabama corner, which did not get drafted. So he's, I think, again, there we go. It's not surprising that they did put a lot of DB help in the undrafted free agents because we got center and 2 corners, because we also picked up the Clemson corner, Mario Goodrich. So Joby or Goodrich could make this team because we don't have somebody after Steven Nelson left, other than maybe, Zach McPherson coming into that role. Right. We have Avonte Maddox, who played slot last year. So, and again, with Blankenship, the thing that worries me is safety. Last week I mentioned that we just had Anthony Harris at safety, but I didn't mention Marcus Epps. Marcus Epps played good last year. But the point I was making is Harris and Epps are not anywhere near McLeod's value. So I really worry about that DB position. So I'm pretty stoked with our undrafted free agents. I think some of these guys definitely have a chance to make the team. What do you think?
Yeah, man, we a couple of these guys we gave guaranteed money to already. We had Mario Goodrich. He's already got 217 guaranteed. He was really on the high undrafted guys. Same thing with Carson Strong. We already paid Carson Strong $320 guaranteed, $320,000. Little signing, like you said, he was one of the most sought after quarterbacks that didn't get drafted. So we still have we picked up Reed Sennett from the Dolphins, so he'll probably battle with Reed Sennett for that 3rd spot with Minshew being the backup and then Hurts. So, but now it's a good point there. Kennedy Brooks, I remember him because he scored 3 touchdowns, 142 yards against the Ducks in the Alamo Bowl. So that was like my lasting impression of him. We did, last year I talked a lot about our return game, and maybe Covey is our return guy.
Right.
This is why I like what Howie did, so much, man. I just felt like, I don't know if he got new assistants. I don't know if he's at a new massage place or whatever that's getting ready for the draft, but he was just thinking. He was really thinking on this draft, man. We picked up a lot of guys that can come in and can play. Mario Goodrich, he's a solid player, like 40-something tackles last year, but he's a willing tackler. Tackler. I thought one thing what we lacked last year was tackling from our corners. Slayer come up sometimes, but sometimes he'll whiff. That little first move, he'll get caught up a little bit. So we want some tackling guys, and I think Joby and Goodrich kind of he's going to at least come into camp. Put some guys on notice. These guys come from great programs. To be a corner at Alabama, can you imagine who you're going up against at wide receiver at practice? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So obviously knows Smith. He knows all those guys. Jared, any of those guys that came, I think Judy was at Oklahoma. Anyway, you get what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. No, I hear you.
Studs that just constantly come out of Alabama. You still got to guard these guys in practice. The guys that are going off the board first. So, the Jamison Williams, you know what I mean? Like, those studs that are out there. These guys, So anytime you get a guy from Alabama, especially at those spots, man, you got to think that these guys' upside are very high, especially to get them undrafted. So, we'll see. We'll wait and see. These are going to be the toughest guys to make the team, man. It's always hardest for the undrafted guys to make the team, but it looks like they're really high on Carson Strong. So, like, he'll make the team. I'm just looking at some film on him. He makes really good decisions. Like, he knows what receiver is open. The arm strength is the only thing that I worry about. A lot of his deep throws, he's making the right read, but that ball hangs up there a little bit. So he throws really good touch passes, like at the goal line, those jump balls, fades. He throws those passes really well. But the deep ball, I think if he gets a little bit better in that, I think he'll be all right, man. I just think, man, we did good overall.
I agree. I agree. I think that a lot of these guys have a chance to make the team. I think Joby and Goodrich definitely have a really good chance. Like you mentioned, the running back Brooks. I think that if you look at our running back depth, behind Sanders, we got Boston Scott coming back, but I don't know if Jordan Howard's going to be back. I don't think so. He's been one of those guys we just kind of bring in there and plug in and then forget about. I don't think they've ever valued him near as much as that they should. So, Boston Scott brings us a lot, but I think that Brooks has a chance to slide in there somewhere as a little bit of a spell to Miles Sanders. So we'll see. I do like what you mentioned about Britton Covey, though, because he actually averaged 11.9 yards a punt and had 4 touchdowns in his career as a returner. That's huge. That again gives us some speed. We also signed the sprinter from the Ducks. What was the guy's name? Allen, yeah. Yeah. And he's like been in the Olympics as a hurdler, and he's a track star, and so we'll see if anything comes of that. But hey, I don't mind them taking a flyer out on a speedy guy, because right now we don't have that return game. You've talked about it a lot about needing to have a strong return game to set up this offense. And when you set your offense up anywhere even close to the 40, you give them just less yardage to have to grind out to get in scoring positions. So. Decent, picks of undrafted free agents. I did mention the EJ Perry thing. We did have a replacement for him after he dropped off, and this guy is Ali Fayyad of Western Michigan on the edge. A lot of good things I read about him. The only problem is he's a great edge rusher. Like you see here on this picture, he's disruptive force, fires off the snap with a quick first step, plays with an excellent lean, but he's kind of undersized, which a lot of people in the MAC are. So we'll see if he can play at the next level. So we'll see about Ali Fayyad, but he did replace EJ Perry on our undrafted free agent list. So a pretty good haul there. So that being said, and including the undrafted free agents and we have to include the AJ Brown trade. I know he's not drafted, but that was a part of the draft. We traded picks to get him. It's time for us to grade our draft class for 2022. And I'm going to let you start your grade first, and I'll give you my grade.
Bring that back up. Bring that last. Bring it back up. I'm not ready for my close-up. But, man, I think overall, this was probably one of the best drafts that when the draft was over, I actually felt really, really, really good about everything we did in the draft. I have to give Howie an A+ on this draft because I can't find anything that he really did wrong when it was all said and done. I question a lot of things, while it was going on, but that 30,000-foot view, man, when it was all said and done, I think we addressed most of our needs in this draft. Yeah, man, shout out to Howie. He did his homework. I think he heard all of our energy, if you will, our energy, towards him about his draft. So he was like, you know what? Y'all not going to cuss me out again about not drafting a wide receiver. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to trade for one that's already good. And that's brilliant. That's brilliant. You're thinking outside of the box. Yeah, man. So I give our draft an A+. I'm really excited about the Eagles' new young talent that they're bringing in, man. What you think about the draft, man? What you give the grade for the Birds?
So now I'll give our close up. A+ is really generous. I will say I am right there with you as far as how he goes. I guess we need to start talking bad about him more because the more we talk bad about him, the more good he does. Is like when we point out his faults. I do want to say one of the things that cracked me up is that we talked about this year being so different. I'm just glad he was in a room with a lot of people around him helping him out because the year that he made the Jalen Reagor pick over Justin Jefferson, it was all by Zoom. He was sitting in his office by himself. I think he was on his phone fooling around playing Candy Crush. I don't think he was thinking about football, or otherwise he would have picked Justin Jefferson, no brainer. It was just a weird situation. So, and then other draft picks of his have been reaches. You know how I feel, and we talk about it with the undrafted free agents. If you come from a Power 5 school and you can throw the big schools, the big conferences in college football, I think in this day and age, you're more prepared to play in the NFL on Sundays if you go to a Power 5 school, no matter what it is, no matter what school it is in the Power 5 conference, because you're playing against guys that are almost the size of what you're going to meet in the NFL. They're not exactly. There's schools vary. You're also playing with the speed that a lot of guys, because these Power 5 schools get the best recruits. You're playing against the best. So if a guy from Montana State lights it up and he's dominating, that conference, Big Sky or whatever it is, I don't care. I don't care because that's like JV. It doesn't mean anything to me. So when I see what Howie's doing in this draft and go out and get big boys from big schools, that makes me happy. When I see our undrafted free agents coming from Clemson and Alabama, teams that are in the national championship playoff game every year, let's get these guys. And so that makes me extremely happy to see Howie doing this. So like you said, I echo it. It is probably one of the best drafts I can ever remember in recent memory. We won't know how great it is until these guys get on the field. But just looking at it is right now after the draft, probably one of my favorites of all time. If I was going to knock anything, it would just be the lack of not getting. I think we go back to the Jordan Davis pick. You could have taken Hamilton and then kept all your picks. And just imagine if we kept Hamilton, and I'm not saying I don't like the Jordan Davis pick. I actually love the pick, but I'm talking in an alternate universe. We pick Hamilton and then we keep all our picks and then we load up on more defensive back talent or get another defensive tackle later on in the draft. There was so much talent on the board to be able to trade a fourth and fifth rounders for him. That one is a head scratcher, but I understand why they did it and I don't hate it and I don't want to be negative about it. But that to me was probably maybe one thing. And then a couple of the final picks, no big deal really. They're 6 rounders, but I still didn't quite understand them, but it doesn't really matter because they're 6 rounders. So I would say A-, which is still high. I say A- just because I can't say perfect because of those 2 minor things. But I will say that if you look in the media, they were the media darlings this year. I can't remember how many shows I watched on whether it be ESPN or NFL Network or whatever that were like, man, the Eagles, they got 5 picks, but they also got A.J. Brown and they got the steal of the draft in Nakobe Dean. So they definitely had one of the best drafts of all the teams involved. So yeah, congrats. I think we're happy.
I'm telling you, man, I've been kind of meh on a lot of Eagles drafts for years.
Oh, yeah.
You'll have like one bright spot where you get Devontae Smith. You got a bright spot there, and then the rest of the draft is like, okay,
that was last year. It was
this
definitely
year,
one where we
right?
came out afterwards and just kind of went,
Who did we
okay.
draft? Like who
We
did
had
we?
Zach McPherson last year. I remember him. Not a lot after that.
They will
Yeah.
always remember when we drafted Jordan Davis. They will always remember when we made the trade for AJ Brown. They will always remember when the Kobe Dean. I hope they will remember when the Kobe Dean slipped to the third round. Cam Jurgens, a lot of these guys, man, and then, even our undrafted guys. If you put on the Eagles helmet, man, I'm rooting for you. If you're the best available, then let's do it. Let's do it. May the fourth be with you. I mean,
it is the fourth. That's
all
true.
my Eagles out there, may the fourth be with you.
Exactly. I think that, that's the biggest thing is that as fans of a team, we're all in it together, and we should be very positive about this draft. I did say I was like every time I was scratching my head about a few of the picks, but I didn't hate any of them.
Mhm.
I think I said to each one, well, I don't kind of understand it, but I kind of like it. But there was a lot of negative people out there, and I was like, we had one of the greatest drafts of all time. You wouldn't be able to tell it by looking at the Eagles message boards, whether that was on Facebook, whether it was on Bleeding Green, some of the other ones that I look at, like Heavy on Eagles. Everybody was like, they're pissed off. I'm like, come on. You got to be happy sometimes. It's right. The draft. We had one of the best we ever did. So let's see how it goes from here. Before we go, we have a few roster moves to talk about. Now, this is just one that it's kind of a non-factor. It really wasn't a roster move for us. Everybody said that after the draft, there was a good chance that Tyrann Mathieu would sign with the Eagles, and that would because we didn't draft a corner or a safety, and he could have come in and played the safety role for us and filled the McLeod void. But it didn't happen because Tyrann Mathieu ended up signing with the Saints this week. No big loss. I look at this like this. We would have had to pay him too much. The Chiefs obviously didn't want him. They let him go. They didn't offer him a contract. So, the Saints are going to bring in this guy, and he's going to fill they really needed him because of Malcolm Jenkins retiring. So we'll see what he does there. I think that for Howie, it's one of those things like you're going to pay somebody so much, and where's the ceiling for Tyrann Mathieu right now? Where is his ceiling compared to, getting somebody? Maybe he's not done making moves. I did like what he said after the draft when people complained about the lack of corners and safeties. So I have to give him credit. He said, well, don't talk to me about this in May. Talk to me about this in August when we're getting ready to go into our preseason games, and then tell me what you think about our corner and our DB, situation. So give him credit on that.
Yeah.
Not a big deal missing out. I did want him, as I thought he would be able, at least for a couple seasons, bring something good to the Eagles, but I'm not brokenhearted, especially not after the draft we had.
Nah, man, I'm right there with you, man. I wasn't, I thought it would be nice if we get a Honey Badger, but I wasn't. Once he signed to the Saints, I was like, how that makes sense? He's from New Orleans. He's from at least Louisiana for sure.
Right.
Went to Louisiana State. It would have been nice to just have his tenacity. Eagles fans like that tenacity, that B-Dog. We're used to having those leaders on our defense, and we're searching for that leader on our defense, man. And nobody has really stepped up yet. Nobody's become that next Eagles leader. You know what I'm saying? Like your Seth Joyners, your Brian Dawkins, your Reggie Whites, the leaders like even Hugh McDouglas. Hugh McDouglas was a leader, and Diamond's our girl's best friend. Just that vibe that Jeremiah Trotter, guys we had you knew carried the sword. You knew carried the sword, man. So we're looking for that next guy to carry the sword and bring that Eagles culture back. Eagles culture has always started with us playing really good defense. You won't be able to score on us. We had Jim Johnson just vibing a little bit. We had Jim Johnson, those days where if you played the Eagles, it was going to be a rough game. You were definitely going to have to hit the ice bath when the game was over. And last year, we were far from that. You were far from that. You can go out to the club as soon as you finish playing the Eagles defense. Especially if you're a quarterback, you haven't been hit. You completed 80%. You feeling the best in your life.
You didn't have to. You skip the ice bath. Skip the ice bath.
I haven't even touched. Not even my receivers. They're getting 7 yards off the ball. So we got to change.
I don't even need to shower. I could just
Exactly.
throw some high karate on.
Yeah, man. Exactly.
Yeah, I hear you. That's a good point.
So yes, sir.
Really so yeah, that's the thing is I think that we may have drafted a future leader in either Nakobe Dean or picked up Hassan Reddick in free agency. Both of those guys have a shot to be that defensive captain. So we'll see. Another roster move that happened this week was the Eagles. I just love this picture. I'm sorry if you're on the podcast and you can't see it. Maybe I'll put it as our kind of our title page. It's just a picture of Nate Herbig. It looks like he's been punched in the face. I think he's just shaking sweat off, but he looks like Chunk from the Goonies. For crying out loud. Sloth love Chunk.
Oh, man, you didn't do Herbert like that, bro. You didn't have to do Herbert like that.
I can't help it, dude. I saw this picture today when I was looking for a picture of Herbert to put on the podcast, and I just fell in love with it. It's great. But anyway, so not only did I just insult him, which he's not going to hear, but the Eagles actually cut him. They waived him today. They've been talking about they were going to do it. They made it official today. So Herbig, who we just talked about last week, is getting that restricted free agent deal. They sent him to the minimum to 2.5 to make him put the tag on him and keep him from going anywhere else. But then they turn around this week and let him go. So that was a kind of a surprising move, especially after the draft. But then when you start breaking down the draft, it turns out that the Eagles drafted Cam Jurgens as their center of the future. That's what Herbig was supposed to be. He didn't make it at center. That's why they drafted Dickerson. I thought he played good enough at guard to warrant, a future role in the Eagles offense. I'm gonna say I think he certainly played better than Seumalo did, in my opinion, because we saw him just steamrolling people in the run game last year. Maybe not so much in pass protection. He did have some penalty issues. He had some holding issues that we know of, and I think that's what maybe was his detractor. But yeah, so Nate Herbig released today officially as an Eagle, so he's gone. Now we have a lot of depth on the line, but I was really just I think it was because they did sign him to that restricted free agent deal, gave him a lot of money, and then realized, oh, we drafted a center, we don't need to pay you anymore. So bye to Herbig. I don't know if they'll bring him back on a smaller deal if he doesn't catch on anywhere, but somebody will probably give him a chance.
Yeah, man. Shout out to Herbig. We appreciated you while you were here, but hey, man, if you're not in the top 5, you're not in that starting 5, man, you're always going to be expendable. But to cut him, I thought that was a little bit strange. I'm right there with you. I thought we always needed just that security blanket because he plays guard and center. Just having guys like that already know the system, can play guard and center, you to get rid of them.
Right.
After signing them. I mean, this man had already signed his children back into school for the next year. He didn't renewed his lease. And then all of a sudden, you let this man go, man. But shout out to Herbig. Hope he continue to grow. If he comes back to the Eagles, cool. But
yeah. Hey
man, either you have an Eagles helmet on or you don't. So shout out to you, man. Wish you good luck. But Cam Jurgens is in the house. Beef Jurgens.
Beef Jurgens. Every time I hear the name,
why you're not in Philly anymore.
I love beef jerky, and so that nickname is just my favorite. I think he's going to catch on really well with the Eagles. But yeah, so I think it was the fact that they signed him to $2.5 million, and they just didn't want to pay him that, and so they had to let him go. So a little bit of a hell to the gnaw for Nate Herbig, especially since we made fun of him looking like sloth. But that does bring us to our final segments of the night. We've got 2 hell to the gnaws this week, so let's start it off.
Hell to the no, to the no, no, no. Hell no, no, to the no, no. Hell to the no, no, to the no, no, no. Hell to the no, no.
So this one I had to start because it's draft related, even though it has nothing to do with the Eagles. I love this picture here for our Hell to the Gnaw segment. If you're new to the podcast, we have a Hell to the Gnaw. It's basically something we find out there on the internet that just happens to just makes you shake your head and go, man, I can't believe this. But this picture is of Aiden Hutchinson, who was the second overall pick in the draft to the Lions. Very happy to be going to the Lions because he's a Michigan boy. He played at the University of Michigan. They love him there. It was a perfect fit. So good for them. But then he's standing next to Jameson Williams, who got picked later on in the first round by the Lions. And if you look at this picture, I don't think Jameson's really happy about going to Detroit. I mean, look at the face, man.
He definitely does not echo Hutchinson's sentiment as far as being in Detroit. He looks like this is the worst day of his life right now. You know, man, hey, he'll be all right.
It's like, what, I got to go back to school? I mean, it's like, can I go back one more year?
One more year. Come on, Nick, work your magic, man. Get me up out of here. They don't even have a quarterback. I'm going to be on the field all game, making 137 tackles. He's going to be upset. It looks like a man, it looks like he's going to work a lot.
Well, it's one of those things is like, you can see so much in his face in this picture because it's like, he's thinking, I'm going to have to catch passes from Jared Goff. Are you kidding me? I could have got passes from anybody. All these teams that wanted me. And I got to go to Detroit, Michigan. And I'm from Detroit. That's why I think I find it so funny is that poor guy.
And this was really, Jameis was really the highest, I'm supposed to defense, but I know he was the highest wide receiver on a lot of people's board, man. The Eagles fans would have loved to have him. He's a good deep ball threat. Yeah, he's just a good receiver, period. But he just reminds me of another Devontae Smith, man. Just a real technical.
Right.
Nick Saban does a great job of recruiting, but I don't know why Hutchinson is so happy. I don't understand. Like I think even Hutchinson should get with what Williams is talking about because look, bruh, you in Detroit, man. Y'all don't even know there is zero direction for the offense in Detroit. They're still talking about St. Brown or some other guys. Yeah. We don't even know who they are.
Right.
They're never going to be drafted in fantasy football because everything matters whether you get drafted in fantasy football or not. But Hudson gonna be on the field for a long time. He better eat well. He's gonna burn a lot of calories. But this is a good hell to the no. Somebody, this should be like the best moment of your life.
I know, right?
That's funeral or something.
That's the thing. Crazy. Is he's just got awarded millions of dollars. That's like winning the lottery, and yet you feel like you're just going to hell. And we'll see where it goes from there because they did get better. The Lions were considered to have one of the better drafts in the league this year. They had a lot of picks, and there's a reason. You're at the top of the draft. They should have a good draft. But the thing about the Lions, never been to a Super Bowl, never sniffed one. I can't remember the last time they were the last time they were in the playoffs was the face guarding game against the Cowboys, where they had actually a good season with Stafford that year, and they had the penalty that wasn't called on the Cowboys where they were face guarding the tight end for the Lions. That was the last time they were in the playoffs. That was several years ago. So, they played the Eagles well, but we usually beat them just about every year. So they're just one of those franchises that, that just can't seem to make it work. And they're at the bottom of the league as far as playoff appearances and just getting anywhere or having any. They always get that one big franchise guy and then run him into the ground like Barry Sanders or Megatron. They build the hype around him, but they don't build a team around him. And that's the problem. So we'll see where it goes. We have one more this week.
Hell to the no, to the no, no, no. Hell no, to the no, no. Hell to the no, no. To the no, no. Hell to the no, to the no.
All right. So this hell to the no is actually, I thought it was pretty funny because it's draft related and it's also Cowboys related. And so if you watch the draft, you know that the Cowboys had the 24th pick in the draft, and they were actually looking at Jordan Davis, who definitely wasn't gonna fall that far, but they picked Tyler Smith, the offensive tackle from Tulsa, as their first round pick. And this is how a lot of people said. The meme is basically the commissioner saying with the 24th pick in the 2022 NFL draft, the Dallas Cowboys are eliminated from the playoffs. So, yeah, to me, that's very real. Now they had a decent draft besides this. I thought they had a pretty good draft, but a lot of people look at this as a reach to grab an offensive tackle from Tulsa in the first pick. I think that there wasn't anybody out there that they were really excited about, in my opinion.
Yeah,
so
man.
I don't know what the Cowboys going to do.
Keyword Tulsa.
Yeah.
Who Tulsa? You could have got a lot of other guys out there. We're talking the first round. How basically, long story short, it feels like the Cowboys never got better with your first round pick. That's what I know they had a solid draft, but I don't know. They definitely didn't do better than the Eagles. So, but we expect the Cowboys to do Cowboy type things, and this is another one. I'll go for a tackle out of Tulsa. Ooh.
Well, this is, to me, it's like Freaky Friday. It's like we've role reversed because a lot of times I've noticed that the Cowboys draft, it usually year to year is pretty solid. I mean, they got CeeDee Lamb last year. That they going back to Zeke, Dak Prescott picking him up was a steal. No matter what you think of his play now, they got a solid starter. I think it was in the 4th round. So they've had really good drafts over the years. And this year, it seems like the Eagles had the great draft, and the Cowboys didn't so much. I'll say this: I've said on the podcast before that I have a lot of friends who are Cowboys fans. Unfortunately, I love them. Don't get me wrong; I always take the piss out on them. But they all were texting me going, "Oh, we suck. This is they were doom and gloom in their own draft, and usually they're pretty happy about their picks. This year, not the case. So that was a big one. And then they did get Jalen Tolbert, the wide receiver out of South Alabama, in the 3rd round. But again, I've said it before. If you're not one of those big schools, I don't really have a lot of faith in you. Now, he is projected to do really well, but you're taking a chance. Like we mentioned in the pre-draft show last week, Jerry Rice out of Mississippi Valley State happens once, every 5-6 years, you're going to get a guy from a small school that is that good. So, they lost Amari Cooper in free agency. They lost Randy Gregory, and they're bringing in a lot of rookies, but not, I really think what this draft did overall, and if we're going to leave the podcast with something, it did level the playing field in the NFC East. It kind of put the Eagles going into this season a little bit ahead of the Cowboys overall, and both offensively and defensively. And so you got to love that when we walk out of a draft and we're looking better than the Cowgirls. So I'm going to say I like it. It was a good weekend.
It was.
So with that, I think it's time for us to roll on out of here.
Yes, sir.
But it was fun. It was a lot of good time. I'm looking forward to what the season brings. And I hope you are as well out there, whether you watch us on the YouTube, I like to say the YouTube, like I'm an older guy instead of YouTube. I say the in front of everything, or the Facebook, or the Twitch. No matter what you watch us on the interwebs, no matter where you watch us, we're glad to have you. And if you're just a regular podcast listener on Spotify, if you're coming from China, where we have a massive fan club, apparently, according to Castro, when we look at our analytics, if you're coming from there, I don't know any Chinese, but I appreciate you. If I did, I would maybe say something nice here, but anything I say now would sound offensive. So I'm not going to try to speak in Chinese. I will just say thank you for listening. And if you're spying on us, we still thank you because it just pumps our numbers up. So that's good too. So anyway, we are on all the major podcast providers. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Music. We are also on Amazon Music, Podcaster Castro. So check us out. Every week, if you like what you hear, keep coming back because we like having you. Now, I did want to mention this. If you're a regular listener, we're usually on every week, at least twice a week. We do a preview special, and then we do a recap for the games. But during the off season, we're not on as much. We're here for the draft this time. But I do want to mention we're going to be back in mid-June to look at the state of the Eagles going into training camp. So we don't have a date for that yet, but we will be back in mid-June for that. And then as training camps open toward the end of July, we're going to do another special, getting ready for the preseason. And then you will hear us at least once a week during the preseason. It's got to recap the preseason games and kind of say what we saw from the Eagles. No need to preview those games because they don't matter. But it will be fun to go over and see what we see from the rookies out there on the that we just got in this 2020 draft. So be prepared for that. It's coming up. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tubby for some parting words.
Just like Lee said, man, take this ride with us as we cruise into this next 2022 season. Exciting season. Gonna be here with you step by step, man. Come back, check us out. You know, and as always, may the 4th be with you. I had to do that again just because it's that day. And as always, man, fly, Eagles, fly.
And go Birds. We'll see you coming up in mid-June. Bye, everybody.